Greetings! In today's video, I want to talk about the differences between watercolor, gouache, acrylic gouache, and acrylic paints. These four are close, but definitely not the same, and it can get confusing if you haven't played with these supplies a lot. I also want to keep this very simple and straight to the point, so it will be easier to remember. I picked a paint from each category in red to make it really easy to see. The brands are not really relevant, but these are all professional level supplies. The main points of interest here are the sort of binder used, the finish of the paint, and whether you can re-wet it or not once it's dry. I'll address opacity as well. I'll also paint these swatches really quick, thanks to the magic of editing, and will work from the dry swatches. First up is the red watercolor. The binder is gum arabic. It's a hardened gum made from the sap of various species of acacia trees. The finish is matte in most cases, but gum arabic itself is slightly glossy. If you end up in a situation where a lot of the binder pools, you might have watercolor areas with a light sheen. As gum arabic is water-soluble, watercolor is highly re-wettable. You can leave it to dry on your palette and the paint will be good to use again if you re-wet it. It's also re-wettable on your painting, so in certain cases, layering or glazing colors gets difficult. Our second paint is the red gouache. The binder is also gum arabic, but cheap gouaches might use a different binder. I'm using a professional gouache, but if you've been to any art supply store, you've probably seen gouache sold in many ways, including large bottles intended for kids to paint with. These probably use a cheaper binder. The finish is matte, unless you buff your gouache real hard. Don't do that, it makes a mess. As gouache also uses gum arabic as a binder, it is re-wettable like watercolor. The main difference between watercolor and gouache is that the latter is meant to be more opaque than the former. Gouache has a different ratio of pigment to binder, which you can see here when I rubbed the gouache with a tissue. It deposited pigment all around, while the watercolor stayed put. The extra pigment and the inert opacifier, sometimes added to gouache, are what makes it more opaque than watercolors. The third paint is the acrylic gouache. This is the one I've seen people get more confused about, and understandably. The name is a bit of a misnomer, in the sense that it would have been more accurate to name it matte acrylics, rather than acrylic gouache. It gets its gouache name because its finish is matte, like gouache, but that's it for the similarities. Acrylic gouache is acrylic paint. It uses an acrylic polymer emulsion base, basically a liquid plastic base. The finish is matte, as that's the whole point of this type of paint. This paint dries to a layer of plastic, so it is not re-wettable. You just can't re-wet it. Once it's dry, it's there to stay. Our last paint is acrylic paint. Like the acrylic gouache, it uses an acrylic polymer emulsion as a base. Unlike the acrylic gouache, its finish is satin, or somewhere between a gloss and a matte finish. It is also not rewettable. Acrylic paints dry to a plastic, and plastic is generally waterproof. This property makes acrylic paints, regardless of finish, easy to layer. In the case of these four paints, you can dilute them with water. The acrylics will tolerate it when they are not dry yet, and to a certain degree. If you dilute the acrylic binder too much, it might not work as well to hold onto the paper and pigment. With acrylic paints, you can use various acrylic mediums to keep the strength of the binder while diluting the color. The watercolors and the gouache's binder, gum arabic, can also be diluted with water. It usually takes it a bit better than the acrylic binder, but there is liquid gum arabic that you can purchase if you don't want to weaken the binder too much in your mix. The last thing I want to address here is opacity. All four types of paints I'm using here have various levels of opacity. At the core, opacity is linked to the pigment itself. Titanium white is opaque because the titanium white pigment is opaque to start with. Even if watercolor is a generally transparent paint, titanium white watercolor will be on the more opaque side of watercolors. Transparent pigments will tend to make for less opaque gouaches as well. My point here is that it's relative within each medium, because of the nature of the medium and the pigment used. There's no absolute. It's not like watercolor is 100% transparent and gouache 100% opaque. Opaque watercolors are not gouache, and transparent gouaches are not watercolor. I'm not as familiar with acrylic as I am with gouache and watercolor, but the same seems to happen over there as well. And it should, because they use the same pigments. I have a list of questions that I will address in a follow-up video on this topic. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section and I'll add them to the list. I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.